Oh, you mean
Um,
we weren't supposed to rehearse this beforehand? That wasn't rehearsal?
this is the third recording, guys. Everybody to the Rambling Gamers podcast. I'm Absurd Parrot, and today we're interviewing Trey, who is a content creator with podcasting, used to stream on Twitch, and loves Marvel. So very excited to have
Hello.
our guest today. Trey, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fantastic. How are you?
I'm well. I'm excited. I'm excited for this episode because I know your love of Marvel. I have a lot of Marvel fans that I either stream to or listen to the podcast, so I know they're gonna want your opinion. And before we start, I just want to give you a shout out, guys. All of his links will be in the description, either on Spotify or on YouTube if you want to catch his podcast or catch him when he streams every once in a while. So make sure to do that. And yeah, so one thing I always ask everybody is,
Mhm.
how did you get into video games? And did your family play? Did friends play? How did you start off with that?
Yeah, it was, definitely with family because it's one of those things where, like, I never remember getting a video game. I just remember it being there, and, like, it was something my dad and I would do. Um, we would play a lot of those movie tie-in games like Jurassic Park, Toy Story, Jungle Book, all those, like, Sega Genesis games, and all those memories were like just wide-eyed watching him beat them and then eventually graduating to like getting the controller myself and just shooting right past what his gaming interests were.
Well, that's a good. Your dad played. Wow, that's. I mean, I believe we're similar age group. I mean, for me, it was the opposite. My mom played, and I remember
Oh,
watching her play Star Fox on the
wow.
64 and being like, "Yeah, you got this." Having her beat Andros, and just like me, my brother, my friend, just watching her play it and beat it. Sometimes you need that parent will get you into it. Like, oh, if it's
Oh, yeah.
mom or dad's doing it or the older sibling, then it's cool and be like them. So, so,
Oh, 100%.
so was
And
the
it's so funny too because, like, I don't think my dad was super into the games.
mm,
I think he just was doing it for me. So he ended up, like,
oh.
topping out around Super Mario 64. Like, I vividly remember it was Boo's Mansion in Mario 64, where that was, like, the last level he played, and I figured out how to get the star and just ran with it and never looked back. He would
Oh
play
man.
Madden every now and then, but that Mario 64 was about where he topped off.
Oh man. Oh, and Boo's Mansion. Yeah, I remember that. I've recently played it because they brought it back onto the Switch. The 3-pack, the Galaxy, the Sunshine, the 64, and I went and played them on there. But wow. Oh, I mean, I guess that's your like birth of, okay. I'm starting it. I'm doing it. And I like that. So
Mhm.
was the Genesis your first system?
It was between the Genesis or the Super Nintendo. Those were the 2. I was spoiled. We had I think the statute of limitations are okay on this. We had a friend hookup at a gaming rental place.
Oh.
So, I had access to a lot of consoles with
Oh.
a very long rental date that we didn't have to return. So, it was just a cycle of, like,
Oh, that's the
consoles.
hookup. That's like the 90s
I would
hookup that you needed, you know? Like that's
no
oh
kidding, I
man.
was spoiled.
That's like nowadays like getting somebody's password for like Game Pass and Netflix and all that stuff, you know? Like and if anything, that was harder to get back then because you had to know the one person down the street working or in your neighborhood working at their video game rental place. We won't use the name, not a sponsor, Blockbuster. Um,
Well, that's what's worse. It was even a place smaller than Blockbuster. Like, I would
oh,
have felt less bad if it was
okay.
a
I
chain
see
like
you.
Blockbuster.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, mine was also the one I remember playing first. We had the Nintendo, but the one I remember playing was the Super Nintendo. I remember playing Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, all those types of. I mean, Mario was like starting point for a lot of people. It
100%.
was just
It
there.
sounds it sounds like you had the All-Star collection on the
We
SNES.
did actually we
Yep.
did yeah because I mean my sister was quite a bit older than me, so she already had been playing these games. So I was just 4 or 5 years old, hitting A and B, just thinking I'm doing something.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, yeah, we had the collection. I remember going through all of them and figuring out which. I mean, I would only play probably like the first two or three levels because I sucked when I first started, right? And similar to you, graduated to I figured out what I'm doing.
And it
Um,
was always that impressive thing of like I would assume it was the case for me. I'm assuming for other people as well. You would have like family from out of town who would come in and tell you that one secret of like, oh, did you know if you
oh
push down on the slopes, you'll slide
yeah.
and do all this? And like it was just incremental knowledge as you went through.
Oh, well, that reminds me. You said family. One of the first memories I have is it was like a graduation party for my sister, and I had cousins come over that I never met. They're from California, and we played Mario Kart. And the one kid, they didn't have a 64, so he was horrendous at the game. When I say bad, I mean I won every match. So after a while, I don't know why I did this. I don't know why like 8, 9 year old self did this. I told him, "Oh, that's my screen. You're the one winning," and he believed it. And like, "Oh
That's
no,
one
you
way to
won. You
manage it.
keep beating me." And he was just running into the wall. And like, my mom still mentions how like my grandmother was like so like, "Oh, he was so nice to his cousin." I'm just like, I don't know why, because I was like, what's the word? I was very competitive, so I was just he was so bad. I was being nice, but yeah, that's one moment I remember is just meeting somebody that wasn't great, and I was like, all right, let's be nice. All right, you're okay at this. You keep beating me. Oh, great, yeah, thanks, parrot.
I think you just triggered a memory that I didn't think about until hearing that. On the opposite end, I'll never forget the time that because I didn't have like my sister is older than me, but she didn't really care about games. I didn't really play with anyone older. So growing up, for my younger cousins, I was the guy. Like they would look to
Right.
me for the gaming stuff. And I'll never forget we were playing Halo with my younger cousin, and he was turning to me. He's like, "Oh, you're letting me win, aren't you?" And I have never tried harder in my life to beat him in Halo. And I had to like for my own ego, just like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally just letting you off the hook."
Yeah, yeah.
But it was like the switch of, "Oh, I'm no longer competitive anymore."
I think I felt that during Call of Duty,
Mhm.
like playing with like younger cousins, where I'm just like, wow, I'm not as into it as I was, and recently I've played it more, especially because the 2020 pandemic. But yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, Halo was a good one too to test your skills on everybody. That was the
Mhm.
first game I beat with a friend, and we did it on Legendary. We did it together. Do you have any other moments that you wanted to share, or anything you
Uh,
could think of from
gaming
childhood unlocking moments?
One of the ones that sticks out to me, especially because knowing this podcast centers around streamers and stuff like that, one of the funniest gaming memories to me in hindsight is I remember I somehow figured out a way to record gameplay on this camcorder we had. Like somehow
Oh,
I don't even remember how I did it. It wasn't like it was just pointing at the screen. I
mm,
was able to plug in the console into the TV and the camcorder and record it. And
oh
it
wow,
was jumping between this old Xbox game called Obi-Wan, and it was a Star Wars game, but
it sounds
Obi-Wan.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like this green box, like, that's all I can remember,
Mm-hmm.
and it just played the events of Phantom Menace with some, like, extra story stuff.
Oh
So I
wow.
recorded that, and I recorded Super Mario Sunshine, and it was so funny that I was, like, desperately trying to get family members to watch. It's like, "Hey, come look at my gameplay," and it was like I was streaming before I'd even
You
found
were
like,
yeah, you're the
years
original
before I even
streamer. I
found
mean,
it.
uh speedrunners would have loved to have known that technology back then. I
Yeah.
see videos and stuff, and they're like recording it on the TV, just watching it there. So yeah, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, if only knew. I
If
came to
only.
it 20 years late after that.
Well, did you play any portable consoles? Did you have
Oh,
anything?
yeah. Uh, I was a Game Boy kid, so, like,
Game Boy.
Game Boy Advance, like, all the way through that
Mhm.
lineage. Um, a lot of Pokemon. That was the one that I
Yeah.
always gravitated to because they had, like, Super Mario Land, like, the offshoots, but even at that age, I could tell it was like, "Oh, you're just trying to port the main console version to this
Right.
handheld." So, like,
Right.
I kinda didn't stick with it, but Pokemon felt like, "Oh, this is the game to play on there." So that was
Yeah.
all my
It
time
it
spent.
felt like just a Pokemon Game Boy at that
Hmm.
point. Like now, did you started off with red and blue?
Oh, of course.
And who did you have red or blue?
Red.
And who was your starter?
Charizard. I'm basic. I
I mean,
always went with
if you can't
Charizard.
tell by right here, I was a Bulbasaur.
Hmm.
That's who I started with. My brother had Squirtle. My friend had Charmander, and I had Bulbasaur. So we had like the trio. And that's what we kind of grew. I think for like the first 2 or 3 games, we all kind of chose the water, grass, fire, and then from there we did kind of. I think both of them went to the dark side to fire. Once we were in Gen 2, but. Uh,
No, it's so funny too because like, first try I would always usually go fire, but it also is such a product of its time that because I was a kid and had so much time, just restart the game and choose another starter. Like it would just
yeah,
circle through all the
yeah.
starters.
Yeah, and you only had one save file. Like, oh, I
Mhm.
remember like I think the first time I think it was blue, and I had beaten the game. It was 150, and I was like I want to start over, like you said. And I remember like, okay, I'm going to erase it. It was just like a big momentous occasion. I'm like, erase, and I'm just like, well, start over again, But that was back when you used to have to grind. These kids these days, they don't understand. There was no experience sharing. It was you had to grind through everybody, go through Victory Road, and actually level up all your Pokemon to, actually
Yeah.
beat the Elite Four. But
It's always funny to me going back to those original games because not recently, but recently enough to remember, like you just don't appreciate the quality of life stuff until you go back. Like I went to go manage my Pokemon box, like just
mm-hmm.
switching out Pokemon and remembering that you would have to save like each time you switched the box in your PC.
Oh
And it would just
yeah.
take like a good 15 minutes just to manage your Pokemon at the PC in the Poke Center.
Oh man, or like having to take a team with you and being like, okay, until I get to the next town or until I get to the Elite Four, this is the team. Like, there's no
Hmm.
swapping anybody out, And also having to learn surf and fly, and as generations went on, rock smash and all strength, all the HMs, you know.
Yeah.
God, man.
I'm not gonna lie, we're peek behind the curtain. We're just meeting for the first time today. I love and am very comfortable how this has turned into old men yell at clouds about Pokemon.
This is how a lot of it goes. Yeah, yeah. In case anybody doesn't know, Trey and I, we are just meeting. We talked for a few minutes before we started recording, and it's like old friends. That's
I know, I love
that's
it.
what it
It's very
feels like.
comfortable.
But you know what? I did meet him through Jet, who I met through Jonzo, and it's like both of those guys. Our episodes were just buddies talking about Zelda or Pokemon or soon Marvel. We're talking movies soon too. But yeah, no, I mean I had the Game Gear as well as far as consoles, and I loved the color, and I had the LED, not LED, but it had the light up screen, the backlit
Yeah.
screen. So, um, yeah, no, handhelds were great. I remember playing the original Game Boy and then Game Boy Color. I still got my Game Boy Color. I got to get it working. I got to get it. It's like dead, so I have to figure out what's wrong with it. But do you still have any consoles from childhood?
From childhood, I still have my Sega Genesis.
Oh,
I was I was pretty rough with my consoles,
uh,
unfortunately. So not every one of them. I have the original Game Boy somewhere in
hmm
boxes, but it is beat to heck. It
yeah,
is,
I was pretty
and
rough on my stuff too, so I won't.
so like I don't even know if I could salvage it. But the Sega Genesis I still have, and it still works.
hmm
And out of all of them, I'm glad because even if like the first memory of games that I have was playing was like the Super Mario Brothers games and the
hmm
SNES. I think the Sega one had much more sentimental value just because like that was the one my dad and I played the most when I would
Yeah,
watch him play like those Lion King games
yeah.
and stuff like that.
One I don't even think I've shared this before on the podcast. A game I used to play with my mom on the Super Nintendo was uh it was Goof Troop. It was like a Goofy Moofy game. Do you remember that game?
I know that game.
Yes. And it was like puzzly. Like you were
Mhm.
still fighting enemies, but like eat some sections. Oh, to get past this is you have to hit the little star cement blocks. Remember that? Or throw a
Wasn't
coconut
it
that hit
like
a switch.
it was like an island motif for some
Yes,
reason,
yes,
right?
and it was
Yes.
all bird's eye. It was all bird's eye view.
Vaguely remember that, yeah. I think because I got real big towards the end of, like, when I was streaming regularly, I was doing a little bit more retro stuff, and so I would go
Ooh.
to retro stores,
Mhm.
and I found that, and I was like, "Oh, this is a deep core memory I just
Yes.
hadn't thought about in a while," but I haven't fired it up. I never got around to
Yeah,
it.
so the story of that is my mom and I would play that game, and we probably played it. I wish, I always say this, I wish there was a way to know how many hours you played games back then, because now it's like, oh, you spent 25 hours playing Mario Kart, and you can see it. I wish I could have tracked the hours. My mom and I played this all the time, and we'd always get to the end, and we couldn't figure out the final puzzle. I don't know why both of us struggled. We were writing, we were drawing like graph paper. We just couldn't figure it out. And then one day, just all of a sudden, I got it. I don't know. Maybe she was just wanting me to figure it out. I don't know. That would have been a long con because it was a good. This was years of us not figuring it out. And then one day we were just hitting it, and I got it, and we finally beat the game, and we were just like so happy we did it. That was probably a moment, like a moment where I'm just like better at my mom than games, or at least puzzle solving.
Oh, I love it.
Even though she always gets Wordle in 3 guesses, so I don't know. She's smarter with words than I am, but she's also a teacher, so.
Makes sense. It's
um,
good to hear y'all are still keeping the Wordle going because that felt like a hot flash in the
let me
pan.
let me tell you. I think the only reason my brother and I play is because my mom still sends it to us every morning. Here's my Wordle. I'm like, all right, mom, all right, let me try it. And I'll get it in 5 guesses, and I'm just like, here you go. My Discord, we still play. A few of us still played it on my Discord too. We just throw it in there, and there's how many guesses. But it was definitely this time last year is about when it probably got hot, right? So
I would, yeah, probably about the peak of its popularity
yeah.
was this time last year.
So I know you don't stream as much, but what made you start streaming on Twitch, or did you do your podcast first? What was the chicken or the egg? What started first?
The streaming was the first. Like I've dabbled in a lot of things up until that point, but streaming really is the thing that took off for me.
Hmm.
And it really started off it's so funny to look back at it in hindsight, and it's a bit of a walk, so bear with me.
Yeah.
I had a friend who listened to the Joe Rogan podcast,
Mm.
and he was like, "Dude, do you hear these people are making money on Twitch streaming?" And I was like, "Oh man, that's cool." And he made me listen to the episode, and it was a god awful episode. I don't know how you feel about Joe Rogan, but it was like it was that stereotypical like, "Oh, you play a lot of video games, huh? You must not have a lot of romantic partners," kind of thing. And it was just like
Oh,
making jokes like that
yeah.
when the guy was
Hmm.
trying to be sincere about
Right.
gaming.
Hmm.
So out of that awfulness, luckily the interest in Twitch took though. Like out of
Right.
everything from that, I was like, all right, well, let's just see what this Twitch thing is. I doubt we're gonna make money off of it, but at worst, we'll have fun just playing games together. Um, so a group of friends and I, we created a channel, the tap stream,
Hmm.
and we were all going to stream under that one. And after about a year, I was the last man standing.
Oh.
Nobody really kind of gravitated towards like the way that I did,
Hmm.
and it was a magical feeling of like, especially within that first year it wasn't like I had many people watching at all. Like, I think it took a year before people really stuck with the channel, but
Hmm.
there was this cool feeling of like almost harkening back to what I was talking about as a kid, where I found a way to record
Right.
onto that camera. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, here's a place where I can just do that. And
Yeah.
it just stuck.
Hey, look, ma. Look, I made it.
Yeah.
Started at the camcorder. Now we're here.
No
Um,
kidding. A lot more expensive here.
yeah, let me tell you, the setup, everything. Like I can tell you have a nice setup, which I can appreciate. And anybody that is watching, if you're listening, you're not watching on YouTube, you can actually see our amazing faces, and he's got a nice Funko collection behind him. I won't show him mine because I took them out the boxes. I know that's probably blasphemy to him. So
Look, I support it either way, whatever way. To me, it's easier just to stack them when they're in the box.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I had them, and the way it worked is I had a couple, and then I had like viewers send me some, and I was like, oh, I always keep them in the boxes, but it's taking up my cube, and they're like, just take it out, enjoy it, and I was like, you know what? That day, I just ripped them. I had like 4 of them at the time, ripped them open. There we go. Now I just take them all open, And every time I always have someone in chat going, well, the value of that went down. And I'm just like, I'm not worried about value. If I were worried about value, I would have kept all my systems in perfect condition and sold them off, now. Everybody wants old Nintendos, Pokemon cards. Oh, did you collect Pokemon cards? I know this is a Pokemon podcast now, but did you collect? Were you to the card games as well?
I did. I definitely went through a Pokemon craze, and I remember like Toys R Us used to
Oh,
hold those like
yes.
weekend competitions, and I wasn't good at it, but I would
You
go
would
and
go.
play.
I was always
Mhm.
too scared to go. I probably should have gone just to watch, but oh man, Toys R Us. That's another core memory there. But this is just core memory lane episode, guys.
I'm telling you, old men yell at the clouds.
Yelling at old game systems.
Mhm.
Um, hey, I'm telling you, the only way to get those games working on the SNES were blowing into the cartridge. Change my mind.
100%.
I don't care what anybody says. My spit and hot air as an 8-year-old, it worked.
Oh yeah, you had to blow in the cartridge, and then you'd have to hit the eject button a few times, and
Yep,
like
yep, and
really
then slam
firmly
it
secure
in,
it.
and then it'd be
Make sure you
like,
get those edges too.
yeah, you got to make sure it's perfect. It's perfectly in
Mhm.
there. Oh man, uh, I have like 30 other things I could talk about, but I'm gonna keep the conversation going.
Okay.
And have you ever met any other gamers or streamers? Sound like you started with friends streaming, but did you ever meet anybody IRL before? Have you ever gone to a TwitchCon or anything like that?
I have. I
Oh,
went to TwitchCon 2017
oh
and
wow.
2018. So I'm very fortunate that I got to meet a lot of the people that
Oh,
I
that's
ran into in
awesome.
the streaming community space. Yeah,
Oh, that's
and people that
awesome.
I'm still in contact with today.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh, that is awesome. I think you're the second that I've spoken to that actually has gone. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. Are you gonna go this year?
No, my TwitchCon days are over.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
last that last TwitchCon, I'll never forget one of the friends I made. We were just kind of standing there, and not to dog on it. Like if
Right.
people like the convention scene, that's
Mm-hmm.
totally fine. But as paradoxical as it is that I'm an introvert and found this
Mm-hmm.
extroverted activity,
Right.
I remember standing to the side with a friend of mine, Lacia, and we were just like, why don't we just put this money towards like coordinating a group event with
Mm,
friends we know? Let's not do like a
right.
convention. Let's just like friends get together somewhere and
Well,
do that.
and I think in the episode with Jet and he and I agreed like going to a TwitchCon, go to the event, like maybe go one day, and then the next day be like, all right, I'm gonna go. If you guys gonna want to go meet for lunch or a coffee shop, we could just hang out and chat because I do better in small groups too. Like in a big thing like that, it's loud. There's people walking. There's somebody wearing something crazy. You're just like, oh god. I
Mhm.
definitely like the more intimate setting. Like, let's have a group meetup. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think that's a better idea.
the last convention I actually attended was like right there on the cusp of COVID. It was
Oh,
January 2020.
oh man.
I believe it was January, February. It was PAX South, and PAX South it didn't feel as big as TwitchCon, but it remains one of my favorite ones because there was this bar that we all kind of coalesced to
Hmm.
just next to the convention. And all my favorite memories from that are that bar. Like it was just a group of friends, like all hanging out there. And it was just like ancillary to the actual event stuff. So
Right.
I'm on that same page as you and Jet
Yeah.
of kind of being adjacent to it.
Well, who knows? Maybe down the road, Parrot Con will just have a whole.
Parrotcon, there it is.
It sounds like
Where
a
do we
con. Like I'm conning everybody. The Parrot Con 2023.
Oh, you're gonna redeem that value of all your Funko Pop.
Well, leave in the comments if you if you would go to ParrotCon. Just a $5,000 deposit, and this is gonna be the next the Fire Fest. I'm gonna have
I
my
was
own
just about to
Hulu.
say it can't be worse than Fire Festival.
Yeah,
That's actually the slogan for it, right? It
yeah.
can't be
Can't
worse.
be worse. Oh. All right. Well, let's roll into your podcast. Which if nobody here has listened yet, or please give him a follow. I know he's on Apple, Spotify as well, and as well as recordings are on YouTube. And it's MCU Need to Know. I love the names. It's one of the first things I said to him before we started recording. So I guess maybe give everybody a little bit of a synopsis of what it's about, and maybe how you got into it, why you got into it.
Yeah, so MCU Need to Know, it is a podcast that I run with my cousin, Jude, and we are a weekly show with the intent of being like a companion show to the Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus. Whenever the movies come out, we have usually like when a show's running, we have whenever the show comes out on Wednesday, our podcast will try and be out by that Monday, recapping and reacting to what the episode had just put out. And the movie's a similar time frame as well. Um, and really, it's just a place for me and my cousin to geek out about it.
Hmm.
We My favorite memory, we actually just put out an episode on our podcast where we do something called the meta episode, which is there's no structure to the episode. We just talk about whatever we're feeling at the moment. And we got on the subject of the first time that we really started thinking about making this a podcast. And for me, episode quote unquote one was at a family gathering where he's as introverted as I am. I feel comfortable saying that now, having done this for 3 years with him. We're both introverts, even within our family member. And so we just kind of like snuck off to the side
Hmm.
into a separate room where nobody was. And we just talked about Marvel stuff for
Oh
the
wow.
duration of the holiday party. And it was after that conversation that I was like, we should do a podcast. We're just coming off the height of Infinity War and Endgame. We're both very excited for Black Widow, which was going to be the release at the
Mm,
time.
right.
Let's see if we can do something. And it just took off from there. Like because I had never really worked with him on anything before, and I didn't know what his level of commitment was going to be.
Hmm.
And so whenever we hit the ground running, and it was like, oh no, he's full on board. We committed to doing like weekly episodes,
Oh, that's
even when
awesome.
even when there's no new Marvel content, we're still putting out kind
Right.
of topic based stuff. Like we did one, should the MCU slow down,
Mm,
or do the Marvel Studios Spider-Man films work without the Marvel Studios characters like Tony Stark, Nick Fury, stuff like that.
right.
So
Well, there goes. If you want the answers to those guys, as much as
there
I
you have
want to
it.
hear it, you gotta go listen. Yeah, and like I said, I got people that love Marvel and or just superhero content in general. So I know you're gonna get somebody's gonna jump in there. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm
we'd love
I'm
to have
listening.
them.
And let me tell you, I since I started work, I listen to podcasts all day. Like I'll break in
100%.
some music here and there, but like I'm just like listening to something. I just need somebody talking in my ear to get me through the day. And hey, I already subscribed, so you,
Oh, well,
you
thank
you
you.
got one new sub there.
Yeah. So every Mondays we're putting out episodes.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't go through this question yet, so I want to ask you it first. Do you remember the first superhero movie you remember seeing, or you remember like, ooh, I like this?
I would say it has to be a tie between the Batman, the Michael Keaton one, 89, I want to say.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that one in theaters. That was one that was just on, or
Yeah.
just remember
Right.
it being on.
Similar.
Going to the theaters, I would imagine it's the X-Men movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of anything else that would have been at that time. Because really, as much as like I spend dedicated to the MCU,
Mm-hmm.
it really wasn't until Iron Man moving forward
Right.
that it
That it
really
felt like,
solidified.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
because it was like
cause
my superhero knowledge was like superficial. Like I never really got into the comics. Like
right,
my approach to it has always been through the movies. And
right.
so I liked it, the X-Men, Spider-Man, all those.
Mm-hmm.
But once the MCU took off, that was like, oh no, I really like
Right.
this.
I'm trying to think for me as well. Definitely, I think it's got to be Batman, Michael
Mhm.
Keaton, and then yeah, I think I remember the first villain I remember seeing is definitely like Danny DeVito's Penguin, and remember just being like, who is this gruesome, nasty looking dude? And then you're like, oh, it's Danny DeVito,
Yeah.
and then I
Otherwise known as my sleep paralysis demon.
exactly like I mean that's a whole other podcast episode there, but and then the other one was the one where the other half of the Twins movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the Mr. Freeze or Ice. I can't remember exactly his name, but
Yeah.
um, that movie. I think that was one, probably might have been one of the first ones I saw in theaters. So, but yeah, the X-Men. I had friends and that love, Wolverine and all that stuff. So definitely X-Men was like the first big series, and nobody counts, Green Lantern.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. I don't even think Green Lantern counts Green Lantern.
well, he doesn't. He's Deadpool now. So, um, yeah, no, but you're right. I remember Iron Man coming out, and I saw it with my better half, and I was like, I'm excited for these movies. Like, and there's more coming, and that was like the hype. Like, I still think that phase of Marvel, I don't think it'll be touched. I think that's gonna be like in history is like, damn, that was a good set of movies.
Oh yeah.
It was just a perfect start and end. There wasn't too much. It was like every year was what was it, one or two movies a year, so you really looked forward to it, and now it just feels oversaturated. In my opinion, if you guys want Trey's, you got to listen to his episode. I'm not gonna pull that out of him. You gotta go listen to his episodes to get that opinion. You're just getting my parrot con opinion. So.
I love it. I'll at least do this. I'll follow you out on that. The further we get into current MCU, the more it highlights what a miracle the Infinity Saga was.
Yes.
And for more of my thoughts, the
In the
tease. There you go.
description. In the description. um, so I always like asking people best, worst, favorite, least favorite. We'll start out with a favorite of your Marvel movies. It could be a couple or one that shines out to you, but let us know.
Favorite Marvel movie, it's really tied for 2 right now,
Mm-hmm.
where I'll go with the one that's had the longest reign at the top, Captain America: Winter Soldier. Captain America is my favorite superhero, and so Winter Soldier, I think, is just the epitome of what
Yeah.
makes him such a cool character,
Right.
and here recently, I was shocked with how much Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings
Ooh.
shot up to the top for me.
Yeah.
That
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It was the way that that movie speaks in action. Like, its entire vocabulary is through action, and storytelling through those movements made me fall in love with it. Like, I
Right.
saw it 3 times in the theater, and I've seen it, like, twice since it's been on Disney Plus, and each time I just fall in love with it more and more.
I did thoroughly enjoy it. I'll have to rewatch it because I remember enjoying it. But I also think that the couple movies that came after Infinity War was still on that high. It was
Mhm.
still like really good quality. So yeah, I'd have to agree. It was really good. But I think for me, my favorite, damn, Winter Soldier is like top tier. It was just so well done. It was so well done. Obviously, well enough where uh is it the Russo brothers? Were they the
The
directors? And
Russo
and
brothers.
that got them the job for for the whole Thanos, the Infinity War. So, spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those ones, like, I have seen it might even outside of just being my favorite Marvel movie, I think it's one of the movies I have seen the most.
yeah,
Like, for the
it's a
longest time, if it was on, I'm watching. Like,
right.
there's nothing
Yeah,
keeping me away from finishing that one.
you know what though? Another one that might top that just a little bit for me, just because of memory and because I love get-togethers, is the first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
I just remember the excitement, the build up. I saw it twice in theaters, which doesn't happen often. Like I'm a cheapskate. I'm gonna go once and then I'll watch it a million times at home,
Mhm.
But I just remember just being so excited for it, and just like the scene where they're just all doing their thing right there in New York. I just remember just like yes, just nerding out in the theater, and
And
that
it
to
was the
me is
proof of the
that's
promise.
probably my favorite. I could rewatch the first Avengers over and over and not get tired of it. But I would probably say Winter Soldier, and then the new recent Spider-Man movie, just because of nostalgia with Tobey Maguire, uh, up
It's
there
hard
as
to
well.
beat a 20-year buildup.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
it's a as much as I talked about Infinity Saga being a miracle, the
Mhm.
fact that they were able to pull that off
Yeah.
is another one of those
Yeah.
Marvel Studios miracles.
Well, I mean, the money miracle. That's the real.
True. I don't know though, because I mean, you could pump a lot of money into stuff and it still not be good.
True. I mean, look at how the DC has been up until now. I mean,
Oh, we're pulling out fighting words now.
well, I mean, James Gunn, he's in charge of it now, right? Like, and he hasn't been pulling punches. He said, "All right, Superman, you're gone. All right, we're starting from scratch," which is the best way to do it. It's the best way.
100%.
I'm actually looking forward to it. I think it's smart. I think it's. I mean, I just like that type of stuff, so I'm here for it. I don't care who it's coming from. I just want it
Oh,
to be enjoyable, and I want to be able to have these conversations and listen to your podcast, about this type of stuff. So
oh
maybe
yeah.
you'll be doing a DC need to know. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with another alternative podcast name for you, but the one you got is perfect. So,
Thank you. Yeah,
uh,
it doesn't quite work with DCU, unfortunately, but we'll make it fit for branding.
So least favorite. It doesn't mean it's bad.
Oh no, it's bad.
Oh well.
Thor: Love and Thunder, no
Oh,
question.
really? You
Terrible.
hated it?
Oh God, I I recognize Marvel movies aren't always cinema. That's are like the height of cinema. That's
Right,
fine. I
right.
enjoy what they are. Love and Thunder was the first time I was like embarrassed to watch it. I was like, what is going on here?
It definitely was disjointed. I'll
Oh
say
yeah.
that. It was disjointed and it felt like they had a lot of ideas. At least in my opinion. It like they had a lot of it felt like good ideas and some like meh ideas, and they're just like, all right, let's just put it on the screen.
Mhm.
And maybe COVID had an effect. I'm sure it did, but
100%.
you know,
To me, the sweet spot that Marvel movies at their height have always had is it doesn't take itself too seriously because it
yes.
is superhero movies, but it takes it just seriously
Mm-hmm.
enough that
Yeah.
you can get into it,
Right.
and Love and Thunder didn't take itself seriously enough for me, and that's where I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
that's where I'm
and
at."
I feel like for that gauge, and you can tell me what you think, but I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy is where that really kind of fits it. Like the first and second one, or at least the first one.
100%.
But and yeah, it's like, and most of them to that point were like on this end, it's like we're serious. It's Captain America. We're saving the world. We're beating. This is the I keep on to say Civil War. We're in World War Two. Yeah, two.
Mhm.
And then you had Thor loving horribleness, and they were just like, yeah. It definitely wasn't my favorite, but I also like Chris Hemsworth as Thor. I think he plays it well. But yeah, they were definitely were going really goofy with that. And one thing I wanted to ask you, I had to hold this off because we were about to have a whole conversation about it. But are you excited for Guardians of the Galaxy 3?
I 100% am. And because I mean, I talked about Love and Thunder. I enjoyed Wakanda Forever, but to me, Wakanda Forever was the lone raft in a sea of disappointment.
Right.
Like Quantum Mania, it was fun, but it kind of like the longer I got away from it, the more I was like, maybe not. Love and Thunder, of course, one of the worst, I think. And Multiverse of Madness was kind of in that Quantum Mania feel where it's like, yeah, it was fun, but with Doctor Strange being in my top five
Right.
story wise,
Right.
Multiverse of Madness just didn't come anywhere near it. So it's this feeling like I need Guardians 3 to be good.
Yeah.
Like
I think it
I
will
need
be.
I
I,
think so too. The
I think
trailers
it's
look really
I think
promising.
it's going to be more on the serious side. I think that's how they're bookending the story, at least in my opinion.
Mhm.
I I hope it's good. I'm excited
Oh
for
yeah.
it. They got the whole team together. I think they're going to do well. So
Mhm. And as much as you talk about like Guardians being right smack dab in the middle of serious and silly, that whole first movie is about the exterior like facade and silliness hiding the emotional core inside.
hmm
So now that we're here at the end, the facade's gone. If we're going to complete this story circle of these three movies, we've got to get deep into that emotional core. And
right.
so I'm ready for it. I think
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a very tearful
Oh yeah, the
experience.
waterworks are going to be going. I'm going to be yeah. When does it release?
May 5th, I
May,
believe.
oh May 5th. Oh
Yep.
oh.
So
Well,
next week,
next week
as of this recording.
from this recording, which this will be right when it comes out, right around this. So Um, yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm the type I pre-order my ticket and we'll go to like I go to the one of the movie places where you can get food and all the stuff, and you can recline your chair, and the seat's 3 foot wide, and that's the way I like my movies now. So,
Oh,
um,
that's fancy living. I like that.
fancy. Well,
I have the recliner seats, but we don't have the like the food outside of the typical like nachos and hot
well, I
dogs. But
used to get the food, and then prices just go up. So usually we just grab dinner or something before. And the milkshake machine's always broken. I don't know if these people work at McDonald's or not, but the milkshake machine is always broken every time. I'm like, oh, give me the cookies and cream, like it's dead. And I'm like, no, it's not, Jimmy. Go back there, tell your manager I am the manager. That's a whole other podcast. Me complaining about teen angst.
it sounds like classic Jimmy.
God damn it, Jimmy. Um, no offense to any Jimmy listeners.
Except you, Jimmy.
Except
You know who you are.
We all have a Jimmy in our life, guys. Um, so I know you've been recording your podcast now. How long has your podcast been going on for? You said since about Infinity War, so
We started May 4th, 2020.
oh wow.
So
Okay,
yeah, we're
so
coming
yeah.
up on our anniversary here. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a wild ride because it felt like when we started, my original plan was like, hey, let's launch right aside Black Widow. And then of course COVID hit and Black Widow kept getting pushed back. And finally my cousin Jude was like, let's just do it. Like we'll figure out something. So we started covering Daredevil on Netflix.
Mm,
And that took us a good chunk of year. And by the time we finished that and did a couple of like different like topic based episodes, WandaVision started.
great.
And then since then, I mean, it's just pedal to the
Mm.
metal.
Okay,
We've been
WandaVision is probably my favorite. No, Loki.
so Loki was at the top for the longest time for me.
Yeah.
Miss Marvel dethroned it. Miss Marvel
I don't know if I saw.
is
I don't know. I think that's one of the ones I didn't catch up on.
Miss Marvel is special for me because it captures what I love about superheroes so much, and that is like the joy of it. Like leading up to it, we had No Way Home, Moon Knight, Multiverse of Madness, and
Mm-hmm.
everything was as much as I enjoy heavy storytellings and don't mind that,
Right.
it was just Miss Marvel came in on the scene. It's like, oh yeah, these can be fun again. And
Right.
it like not only did that within the story of Kamala Khan being the superhero coming of age, but it involved the community in it as well. And that's something I feel like I haven't seen since that scene in Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
Yeah.
Like there's something special about including the community in those superhero stories.
Oh, I'll have to give it a watch. I'll have to give
Yeah.
it. See, you're giving it the okay. I'm trusting your opinion, but Loki to me for me until I watch it, Loki is number one, and then WandaVision number two. Um, and I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's what it's called, right?
The Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I enjoyed that. I'm looking for that movie. The next
New
Cap.
World Order.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it's called? Okay.
Captain America 4 New World Order 2024, I believe, next year.
Okay. Well, good. Have it sit for some time. Let me look and let me anticipate it. I was expecting something this year, and glad it's next year. I mean, they're still rolling out tons of stuff, but oh man, we are just going left and right. This is just a Marvel. First, it's Pokemon podcast. Now it's a Marvel podcast. That's what we're here for. So.
Yeah. I knew this was going to be good when we had to stop ourselves like 5 times before we hit start recording.
I know I was like, okay, let's save that for the episode. Just save it for the episode. Because I mean, obviously I want to hear it, but I want everybody else to hear the first. I don't want them to get their second iteration of you explaining something. The first way is the best way to listen. So
Oh, you mean we weren't supposed to rehearse this beforehand? That wasn't rehearsal.
this is the third recording, guys. Um So I'm guessing your favorite thing. I always ask everybody their favorite thing to stream or favorite thing to create content for. So right now your favorite thing to create content for is about the MCU universe, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, that's been the I think after, streaming for 4 years straight and then going into the podcast, it was a marriage of, like, what I talked about with me and my cousin Jude of, like, "Oh, this is something we clearly like." And then on a personal level, is like, "This is just easy to do." Not that streaming wasn't easy, but it was, like it was the perfect fit of what I was looking for at that moment. So,
Right.
like, as much as we've been just going back and forth talking about Marvel stuff, it was
Right.
it was that finding a place to be able to do that on a weekly basis,
Right.
basically.
Well, I feel like we're definitely like kindred spirits because I started streaming during the pandemic,
Mhm.
and then it was just really I was like, I want friends to play with. I want to be able to play some games, and I do a lot of community gaming and Mario Kart and Fall Guys, all that stuff. So definitely it felt comfortable, because it's like, oh, I'm hanging out with viewers, friends, whoever, other streamers. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a good way to get into it, where you're not looking at it for growth. It's just I enjoy doing it, and
Mhm.
it's something I want to do. So sometimes it's hard, man. Editing sometimes a little bit of stuff. That's the hard part. This part's the fun part.
Oh, yeah.
It's the recording
It's so
part.
funny. We talked about the meta episode that me and my cousin just put out. That was one of the things we did is we had to unfortunately take a bit of a hiatus at the end of November last year, all the way to February of this year.
Oh,
We didn't have any episodes just because he had some life events. And we just decided to take a step back because it
right,
didn't feel right doing it without him.
right.
And so once we got the ball rolling again, we actually took time to pre-record episodes, let those bank up, and then
There
start
you go.
releasing.
There you go.
But what we did is to do our meta episodes, we recorded something before we put anything out, paused it, and then after we put out 10 episodes, we came back to that original recording and put our experience of what it was like to be at this place where we're coming off a break and then having come off the break, and this leads into what you were saying. The thing that teased out of that would you can hear me on both sides of that recording saying, "I like having done it. It's falling in love with the doing of it. That's the hard part."
Right,
You have to love the process
right.
because in that moment when you're editing, it's like, "God dang, why would you do this?
Yeah,
This is so
yeah.
time consuming, blah, blah, blah." And then you get to the end experience and it's like, that's the reward. That's the
Right,
rewarding, like,
right.
fulfilling part of making stuff
Right.
online, whether it be podcast or streaming, and it was fun to be able to capture that on both halves of
It
that
it
podcast.
really it's like an online journal in some type of
Mhm.
way, It's like you can look back. I mean, for a while, I need to get rid of some, but I saved like all my Twitch streams,
Yeah.
and my hard drive is full. Let me tell you. But I'm probably gonna keep like try to find a few moments and keep a couple streams just for me for down the road. But yeah, I mean this way even better on YouTube where it's just there. It's not
Mhm.
taking up as much space. But yeah, if you don't love it, it's gonna be hard. It's hard to stick with because then it's like, oh, I didn't want to do it anyway. So, but I'm glad that you guys are back from it, and you're gonna get some listens after this episode. I'm sure that get some support because yeah, I mean Marvel. It's although people are tired of it, there are still a lot of people that love it.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to listen and hear opinions and
Yeah, everything comes in waves. I mean, it's clear we're in a down
hmm
part of the MCU right now,
right.
but it'll go back up again.
And even their down is still making millions, so they're
Oh, yeah.
fine. It's Disney; they'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
So apart from creating content yourself, what do you like listening to? What do you like watching? Anything on YouTube? Do you do 100% MCU? You listen, watch, breathe it, or do you watch gaming? What do you do to relax?
I think outside of gaming, like, I do that, I'll watch streams. um I actually kinda go into the opposite directions. I used to be 100% MCU,
Mhm.
but having done the podcast, it became something that I was very aware of. Is like, "Let me try and balance this out." Like, I
Right,
don't want it to be a 100% diet of
right,
MCU stuff.
right,
Um, but I think really podcasts are the thing that I consume the most.
right.
Um, one of my biggest inspirations ever when it came to creating stuff online is Rooster Teeth. I don't know if you are familiar with
Yes.
them.
Yep.
Uh, which it's so funny having, like gone from where I was just doing the podcast and I used to do more like guest spots like this.
Mhm.
It was a little bit more favorable to mention Rooster Teeth than it is now.
Right.
They've had
Yeah.
some controversies,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
but
I
I
I
can't.
grew up on that too, seeing that stuff. So
Oh yeah, like that to me. That was the one of the first times that I remember clicking like, oh, people make stuff online. Like as a job. Like
yeah.
back when I was still hunting it as a job, it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is really cool."
Yeah.
So, even though they've unfortunately had some things come out about them of, not a great place to work,
Yeah.
it's still that muscle memory of like I listened to their podcast and um well, the one I was going to say it's called Bleep Face. I don't know if I can cuss here, but I'll just say Bleep Face, Face Jam, Anma, the Rooster Teeth podcast, stuff like that is really where I spend a lot of my
Yeah. No.
content time.
Yeah. I mean, at least for me, now that I'm working, like I said earlier in the podcast, now that I'm working in an office, like if I'm not listening to music, it's like, all right, let me throw on a podcast about whatever. Just, but I think a lot of times it's like having the noise, something
Yes.
that you can get into, like somebody like some friends are talking, and I mean that's really the heart of this podcast is just some friends hanging out and chatting and talking with hopefully with similar interests that other people want to hear. Whether it's gaming,
Oh
streaming,
yeah.
or movies. And one day I'm gonna have someone on here. I'm gonna have a whole episode about The Office. Just because I love The Office. About rewatching
Oh
that
yeah.
for the umpteenth time. But
Yeah,
um,
that'll be a fun one to listen to for sure.
yeah. What game are you playing? Any games right now? What
R
consoles?
Right now, because unfortunately it is hard for me to focus on one thing,
I
when I
feel
do
that.
stream, I've been playing Elden Ring, which has been really fun. So,
Oh,
I alternate between doing some, like, off-stream grinding for
hmm,
the once a month stream that I do.
yeah.
I've been working on God of War Ragnarok, and then occasionally I'll bring in Super Mario Maker,
Oh,
whenever I feel like punishing
did you
myself.
ever stream Super Mario Maker?
Dude, Super Mario Maker is where I credit the stream taking off.
Wait, wait.
That's
First of
cheat
all,
mode.
wait. So Super Mario Maker is the
Mhm.
first content I ever watched for gaming. Like
Really?
got into like back in 2016 because I believe it came out in 2015.
That's when I
So
was at the height
so
of streaming.
so 2016, I was traveling. I
Mhm.
was actually overseas. I went backpacking, and at that it was like months and months in. I was like, I miss video games. I didn't bring anything with me. So I was like, I really miss video games. Let me watch somebody play Mario Maker, and I'm sure you know this name, Carl Sagan.
Yep.
He was like the first one that showed up, and I was like, all right, let me just watch someone play Mario. And then through him, I started watching Grand Pooh Bear, Barbarous King, all those guys, and just whoever played it. I'm just like, I just want to watch somebody play video games because I'm not home. And then when I got home, I just kept watching that. That's what got me into actually YouTube and Twitch, and I was just watching. I was just like, I can't get enough. So what did you tell me? Tell me about your background on that.
So I another one of those like solidified memories. I had streamed here and there. I played some Life is Strange, played just odd end games,
Hmm.
but I remember there was one time where I was actually about to go to the movies, and I was like, "Oh, I got a little bit of time to kill. I'm just gonna hop on Twitch. I just got this Mario Maker game. Let me just play it and
Hmm.
see." And I was just playing the 100-man challenge, and
Yes.
nobody was watching. And all of a sudden, somebody was like, "Hey, can you play my level?" And I was like, yeah, sure, I got time. I'll play it." Played it. Another person, "Hey, can you play my level?" I was like, yeah, sure. I'm working on this person's level, but let me get to it." Another person comes in, and it was just this like it clicked moment of like, "Oh, this is something." Like
Yeah.
people want to see their levels played, and I remember thinking like, hey guys, sorry, I gotta go to the movies, but I'll be back on later tonight if you want to play." So, of course, I don't remember them specifically coming back,
Yeah.
but when I came back to playing, it was still that same loop of people wanting
Really?
to have their levels played. And I did that for a bit. And the further I got into it, the more I found tools like, oh man, I can't remember what it was called, but it was this community built Twitch chat integrated thing where people could put their exclamation mark ad plus level code and it would
Mm.
automatically send to my game. and I would
Really?
just do that for hours, yeah.
Oh man.
Did you not get to did you stream Super Mario Maker? Or did oh, no, you
No.
came in during the pandemic,
Pandemic.
2020.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
actually at that point Mario Maker 2 was out.
yeah,
So, but really, most of what I watched was pre-recorded. Everything I watched was on YouTube because I was working.
mhm.
So, but no, I remember hearing about that, but I don't remember. I never took part in it. I'm a huge lurker. So,
Yeah, I totally get that.
oh
But
man,
no, yeah, Mario Maker's special for me because of that,
yeah,
like, it's a tale of 2 communities for me on
hmm,
Twitch. Like, Mario Maker's what got me a lot of those early numbers that I had,
hmm.
but Breath of the Wild was where the shape of
Oh,
the people in the community took place, like,
yeah.
actually getting to know the people, and of course, people came in from Mario Maker and stayed, but, like, those 2, I think, were, like, the perfect encapsulation
They
of,
work well
like, something
together. They're
building.
good.
Yeah.
They're adjoining communities. A lot of people that play, they're similar. You know.
Mhm.
It's kind of like for me because I play a lot of Animal Crossing and Sims. Well, I didn't play a lot of Sims, but I did for a little while. But those communities are design oriented and all that kind of stuff. So there are definitely, if someone's looking at streaming, find two games that you can kind of focus on because people will, you get a good mix. But man,
Mhm.
what that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And man, no, I couldn't get enough of Mario Maker content. I loved watching anybody play. That's great. I'm trying to. Oh man, I wonder if I had watched you at one point because I would like sometimes I would just watch and just go to different. But you didn't have anything on YouTube.
No, at that time, I wasn't really doing anything on YouTube. It was
Yeah, I mean
purely all
that's a whole bunch
Twitch.
of work on its own. YouTube.
Yeah.
Like okay, I'm streaming. Okay, now I gotta edit.
No, it was 100% streaming those days. I got to the point where I was, like, archiving stuff on YouTube, but I've never done, like, seriously edited YouTube
Right,
content like that.
right. Oh
But no,
man,
I remember it was a I even got to the point where I got 2 Wii U's, 2 capture cards, and I would have friends come over side by side, both Mario levels on the screen, and we would try and race levels
wow,
together.
no way.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was,
that's so cool.
yeah, it
That's so
I think you talked earlier about wanting to be able to just see how many hours you've had in a game. If there was any game I've put more hours into, it's Mario Maker.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think my max is. I mean, the Wii U didn't count. Or no, didn't the Wii U count hours?
It it did, but I think it was, like, a complicated thing to figure out how
Yeah,
to
I think
get.
I think you had to like do some stuff. There was no just go to your
It's
profile.
Nintendo.
And yeah, until it's become easy enough for them to do it, they're not gonna do it. Oh, you know what I just realized, and I wish after work today that I pre-ordered the special Tears of the Kingdom Switch. That was my treat. That was
Oh,
my treat. Treat yourself. And
nice.
I left work and I went home and I totally forgot to pick it up. So I'm gonna pick it up tomorrow. It was like I think it was about 7:30 is before we got started talking, and I was sitting there and I look at my other half and I'm like, you know what I forget to get? I said I forgot to get my Switch. And she goes, bought another Switch? I was just like,
That's
yeah.
one that's one way to reveal it.
I was like, well, it's easier when you're home. And it's like, oh, well, it's here. But um, yeah, man, because otherwise I would have it here and I would show you, which is the only reason I brought it up. But
Oh, I would
next episode, I'll show
100%
you.
jealous. That special edition looks nice.
I've never had a special edition any console. This is my
Mhm.
first ever one, and this is my you got a new job, good job, burb. That's what I did. I pre-ordered it. That's it. That's my treat myself.
Awesome. I'm
Um,
glad you did that.
you got to be nice to yourself. Every episode we always end up talking like mental health or something, but you got to be nice to yourself every once in a while because if
100%.
you talk to other people the way you talk to yourself, you would not be friends. Let me tell you. Not you, but me to myself.
Dude, I really think it's uncanny how kindred spirits are here because, like, the first I'm not even kidding because, like, this was something I had to go to therapy to work on.
Hmm.
I remember the first time I realized, like, "Oh, you've got a problem,"
Right,
is I heard that phrase, it's like, "Would you talk to anyone else like that?"
right.
then why are you talking to yourself like that? And I just
Right.
started crying. Like, I was at work, I was like, it finally clicked now. So it was like,
No,
yeah,
it's
I
dude,
100% get it.
dude, it's so true, and it feels like the last couple episodes. It's just like I am just the same person as the person I'm interviewing, and I hopefully you can give it a listen. Is a new friend, Cyberfox, and him and I we live in the same state. We're
Mhm.
both in New York, and we figured out we're pretty close to each other. But we were talking, and it was like the same thing where it's like he said something, and I'm like, "That's how I feel," and then I said something. He goes, "That's what I think." I think this is another one of those episodes, guys. This is just parrot finding friends. This me finding
Mhm.
more friends to hang out with. Um, I'm trying to think. Oh well, I guess we can move on to our outing questions. These are some of my favorite parts. You have, you know what? I'm gonna mix it up with you. Do
Okay.
you have a gaming pet peeve, and then also after that, I want a movie going pet peeve when you're in the theater. So you can give me gaming first.
Okay, gaming is easier, and this is one that's only emphasized the older I get. Let me pause at any point. Like, I am so tired of the cutscene that I
Yes.
can't tell if I pause, if it's gonna skip it or if it's
Yes.
actually gonna pause
Yes.
because there's just too much to do these days.
Yep.
Like, I can't sit and watch your 30-minute cutscene. Just let me pause.
Or when there's too much dialogue. Like
Mhm,
sometimes it's like there's a good mix, but I've been recently playing Octopath 2, Octopath
mhm.
Traveler, and I love the game. I beat the first one. I'm on the second. I'm probably pretty close to the end game. But in the beginning, it's like I don't know if you know the game or played it, but like there's 8 characters, but you have to play chapter 1 of each character, which is fun because you can start and go wherever you want. But each chapter 1 takes like a good 45 minutes to an hour. And it's chapter 1, and it's like okay, you have to start with this character, you're starting from scratch, you're back to level 1, you're only using them, you don't have any of your benefits, and it's just like, okay, and this is the story. You can skip it, but I'm the type of person, I'm just like, well, I gotta listen. I gotta hear the story. So maybe my pet peeve isn't a pet peeve because they give you options to skip it, but I'm like, I gotta play the whole thing. I gotta listen.
Mhm.
I you put it in there, you spend time. I paid $60 for this damn game. I'm gonna get my. But I agree. Yeah, you should be able to pause. You should be able to pause.
I'll tie this back to the one of the first things we talked about with Mario and like only ever playing the first few levels. To me, that is the difference of gaming, depending on what age you are. Because I remember being a kid, it's like I gotta find the warp whistle, I gotta skip all the way to the end
Yes,
and beat the game.
yes.
And then now it's like, you dummy, you paid for the game. Why are you
Why
trying to
are you
skip content?
skipping? You know what? That's true. I remember doing the same thing where it's like, I know exactly where the whistle is, and I keep going and skip through, and then sometimes I'd be like, this time I'm not getting the warp whistle. I'm gonna play through all the levels and then learning about the hammer throw.
Mhm.
And I'm like, why am I skipping? This is the best outfit ever, and throwing hammers at everybody. Oh well, movie pet peeve, movie going pet peeve. You're in the theater, you got your popcorn, you got your Diet Coke, not a sponsor, but slushy. There we
You
go. Say slushy.
I feel like it's such a common one, but it is this the cell phone. Like I
Yeah.
used to be a lot worse about it, like letting it ruin my movie experience. Like, oh, they have their phone on. This is terrible. Worst night of my
Mm-hmm.
life. And I'm okay with it now, mostly because it seems like phones aren't going away, but people are a little bit smarter about let me turn the
Yes.
brightness down. And I'm okay with that. But the people who keep the brightness all the way up, I
Yeah.
think
When it's
that's
the
my pet
Batman signal going to the ceiling, it's like, all right, calm
peeve.
down, Jimmy. We see you down
Mhm.
there.
Of course, Jimmy.
Oh man, you know what? You're right though. Because I remember that being more of an issue. Phones ringing, screen brightness, probably really like 10 years ago when it was more of a new. I mean, really 10, 15 years ago. Really dating ourselves now, but um, yeah, I would say for me, pet peeve phone, and I would say the people that try to kick the back of your seat, try to put your feet on there. I haven't
Yeah.
had it in a while. Knock on wood. I'm jinxing myself, but Yeah, like, come on, like, this is my personal space. Like, what are you doing?
S So the theater I go to ever since they switched to the, luxury recliner theaters,
Mhm.
there's actually a wall barrier between the
What?
next, like, seats.
Oh, that's
So that's just
nice.
not a problem anymore.
First world problem, man. They're fixing them one problem at a time, you know?
World peace, maybe someday.
How about this
Comfy seats at the
wall? How about this
theaters.
wall behind my back, though? Oh,
Priorities.
man. They are. They are. All right. Favorite food?
I feel I don't know if this is, coming out after, but it is a repeat of Jet's. It's pizza. I'm right there with him. That's another one of
Ooh.
the, like, "Oh, I know I'm in a good place with Jet," where as much as he loves pizza, like, I'm right there with him.
I mean,
It's just the
pizza.
perfect food.
It is, and you can have it so many different ways. You know, I remember my mind being blown. Someone's like, "You want breakfast pizza?" I'm like, "It's just cold pizza, right?" I'm like, "Oh no, oh no, no,
No,
no,
no,
Burb."
no, no.
And let me tell you, oh,
Yeah.
that's a good choice. I mean, it's a good all around choice. I feel like it's a good go to. Jet would approve. Yeah, if you're
And
listening,
I at this point, I'm living my life to get Jet's approval, so.
that's actually the only way to live, guys. The Jetpack Paul way.
He needs to make a Jetpack Paul seal of approval similar
he,
to, like,
yeah,
the Nintendo ones.
yeah, he should. Oh, he should. He should. We're
Mhm.
gonna DM him after this and be like, "Here's our idea." All right. Well, I'm not sure if you're an avid reader or not, but I always like to at least ask it. Do you have a favorite book? Recommend?
So, I did my homework by listening to this, podcast. So I knew this question was coming up, and I'm so glad you asked this because it completely changed what, like, my relationships to book. Like, I used to be a bigger reader than I used to, than I am now, and right now I'm probably averaging about a book a year, unfortunately. As much as I'd like to be higher, it's a book a year, and long roundabout way to the answer, my current favorite book is one actually I found recently, and it's a book called Goodbye Again by Johnny Sun. And, we touched on a little bit of the mental health aspects of the way you treat yourself. And the thing that is so special to me about this book is that it has that on the outskirts, but it's really honing in on the relationship that people have towards work and how work usually is in place of dealing with those feelings of negativity towards yourself and like finding that need for work. And so that I read that book and it was just like I'd have to because it's like little short essays, so it's not like long chapters. It's like little writings from this author Johnny Sun. So I would read 1 2 page little entry, and I'd have to set it down and just cry because like it was like
Right.
I've never felt so seen by a book as I
Right.
have with Goodbye Again. And to bring it back around to what I was saying, like I'm glad that you asked this. Is I don't know why I built it into my head that like once you read a book, it's done forever. It's like, no, that is my favorite book. I'm just gonna read it again. So actually, I've been reading it
Oh man.
here recently, all because of your podcast asking this question. So I wanted
Man.
to thank you for
So
that.
so it's goodbye again. Again. You
Again.
know. No, that's good. I'll have to look into the book, and if anybody else is as well, they can go find it for themselves.
I think
Yeah,
you'd like it. As based on our conversations tonight, I think you'd really enjoy it.
man. Well, I might, and I agree. And now, is the book like for work? Is that like keeping busy type of work, or like work life balance? Is that kind of
The It's more musings about that being in your own head and how
Mm,
sometimes work can be a distraction from that. Kind of like what we were talking about, like with having podcasts, like having
right?
something to just always be there.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
And so I remember the passage that like hit me the most, just to summarize it, is he was kind of writing about this feeling of like, him doing stuff that he enjoyed and it being deemed a waste of time
Right.
and finally reaching this point of that's okay. Like
Right.
sometimes that work is for the person to enjoy. It doesn't have to be
Right.
a podcast. It doesn't have to be a
Right.
stream. It doesn't have to be this finished piece of work.
Right.
Sometimes that work is the expression of your own
Right.
like being content. And that's That's what's beautiful about this book, I think.
So I know the next question, just because we're rolling into this, is TV show movie. Before I ask that, have you seen the show Severance?
I have. I actually just recommended it to Jet, and he watched it.
First of all,
It's all
when you said like splitting life and work, and that's the
Mhm,
first thing I thought about was that movie. Cause that movie, or that no movie, that show,
mhm.
I love that show. It's a
Yeah.
phenomenal show. If you guys haven't, we're not gonna spoil anything. I'm not a spoiler, but god
Jimmy
damn,
would.
You know Jimmy would be on if he's ever on this podcast. We're calling him out about it. But like you said that, and I'm like that show just popped in mind immediately. Like how many ways, like how that show like affected, like, oh man, like would I do something like that? And oh man, but favorite TV show or movie, or I guess you kind of already gave us a movie. How about this? Favorite TV show, movie, not superhero related. Giving you the
Not
handicap.
if you would have asked me 3 years ago, the answer would have been Community, and I have to give it a shout out because
Oh
Community is
yes,
always gonna have that
yes,
special place in my
cult
heart.
classic.
But here recently, my go-to answer is Ted Lasso.
Another
It
phenomenal show.
is it is so good. In a
I
world that we're living in now, starved of empathy, that show trades in empathy episode after episode,
Yeah.
and it makes me so happy.
Well, I went into the show thinking, oh, it's about soccer. Yeah.
No.
It's like Karate Kid. Karate Kid's not a karate movie. It's a coming of age movie.
Mhm.
This is a debate I have with my brother all the time because he goes, no, it's a karate movie. I'm like, no, no, no. Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, and that is just like this Ted Lasso. I haven't watched season 3. It's out, right?
It is out.
Okay.
I was very worried 'cause I'm not up to date. I've
Okay.
been watching with my significant other, but we're long distance, so it's like, it's been killing me that I have to wait when her schedule's allowing.
Oh man. No, I'm
So I was like I was about to jump in there and be like, "Don't spoil anything, I'm
yeah,
not on
no,
the
no, no.
current
I'm not
episode."
the type. I don't say. I just say if I
No.
like it or not. So, which might spoil for things for people. But yeah, usually yeah, no. Phenomenal show. Phenomenal
Oh, yeah.
show. Like probably
Kindness and empathy is
I
the
mean,
heart of it.
last year between Severance and Ted Lasso, those were like my like high points of shows last year. So, agreed. And I love Community as well. Love Community
Mhm.
as well.
Oh, yeah, that was my go-to thing, like, if you ever tune into a stream, I'm just stealing community jokes the whole time. That's all I'm doing.
Trey and Parrot in the morning. There we go. See, we're already doing our own thing. We'll get the handshake down.
And
Uh,
it is at night, so
at night. Um. Oh man. Well. Oh, movie. Non superhero.
non-superhero movie. Oh, man. Hmm. I'm gonna go with Lost in Translation. That
Ah,
is
that's a callback.
yeah, Bill Murray, Scarlett
Yeah.
Johansson.
Jeez, I haven't seen
I
that in
remember the
so
first time I
long.
saw that movie,
So long.
I rented you wanna know how long ago it was? I rented it from Blockbuster.
Where his buddy worked, guys. He still had the hookup all these years later.
No, so I rented that movie, knew nothing about it, watched it, just sat there in awe, and immediately started it over, right there that same night. Let the credits roll,
Wow.
started over, finished it, went to bed, woke up, watched it again. I don't know what it is about that movie. I haven't seen it in a few years either, so I'd
Right.
love to revisit and see, but there
Oh,
was just something about that movie that just struck a chord with me. The vibe and the feeling of it just was perfect, and
right.
so that's one that I always go to whenever the question of favorite movie
Yeah,
comes up.
interesting. For me, it was Coyote Ugly. I don't know why. I watched it over and over again. I'm just kidding.
You just really wanted to dance on tables, right?
I was actually gonna say Magic Mike, and I was like, no, Ugly is a farther back, closer to reference. So yeah, no. All jokes. But last one, probably my favorite one, his favorite quote.
So, this feels kind of like a cheating answer because it's technically a lyric, but
Hmm.
it's they borrowed from the poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling. I can't say that for some reason. Uh, and it's from a band called Brand New. Song's called "Sowing Season." And essentially the lyric is it in you now to watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools? And to me, I think that line has always stuck out with me because it is again going back to that embodiment of like en- enjoying the process, enjoying the work. Like no matter how hard things get, can you put in the work that is required? And it's hard too because like I think you can go too far into the unhealthy relationship of work, but I think there are people like me who do find solace in that. And
Right.
so that's why that quote has always stood out to me.
Uh, Um, perfect quote. Perfect quote to end the episode. And I just want to say, Trey, again, thank you for being on. Thank you for the wise words of life, of movies, of gaming, and letting everybody learn more about you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
This is
being on.
I appreciate you having me on. This is the first time meeting and it went well. I'm excited to catch up more of your podcast and streams now.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I'll try to catch you when you're on once a month. I'll try to pop in,
Oh,
meet
sounds
you,
good.
meet the community, and thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you guys haven't already, I already said in the top of the episode, please go follow him. He's streaming, but the biggest thing is his Marvel podcast, MC. You need to know on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you get ours. Go listen and have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll hopefully we'll be talking soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Take care.